The prevailing political ethos of the residents of upstate New York varies from that of their downstate counterparts. Voting patterns, often attributed to the region's rural to semi-rural character. There is more conservatism in culture and politics than found in the more urban downstate area, and it is the power base of the state's Republican Party. Upstate New York does however have several pockets of Democratic influence. Western New York, particularly Buffalo, has been a Democratic stronghold for over a century. The Capital District, particularly Albany, Schenectady and Troy, was long the only Democratic bastion in the eastern upstate. Other pockets of Democratic strength are Monroe County, Rochester, Onondaga County, Syracuse, and Tompkins County. Ithaca. As a whole, upstate New York is roughly equally divided in federal elections between Democrats and Republicans. In 2004, John Kerry defeated George W. Bush by less than 1,500 votes. 1,553,246 votes to 1,551,971. In the upstate region, historically, the Republicans in the region more closely resemble Rockefeller Republicans, pro-business but socially liberal Republicans who supported the policies of former Governor Nelson Rockefeller. Others are libertarians similar to Republicans in Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, and some western states instead of the social conservatism of the southern states and the religious right. However, the religious right still has lots of influence in the area. The influence of public service labor unions is a factor in the Democratic Party's continued strength in the region. Hospitals and public schools are among the area's largest employers, and these agencies have unionized workers. Unionized workers as a whole make up 1/4 of New York workers, the most in the nation. These unions, most notably the Service Employees International Union and New York State United Teachers, make large purchases of television airtime on local television and radio stations during budget negotiations and prior to school budget votes to air commercials featuring scare tactics, threatening the closure of hospitals or emergency rooms, larger class sizes, and reduce care if they don't receive more money. Organized rebuttals have been few and far between, although more frequent in recent years. Eliot Spitz's use of his personal campaign funds to push through his 2007 reforms was the first. More recent movements include Rochester businessman Tom Gilizano's Responsible New York campaign, and Buffalo developer Carl Paladino's calls for a constitutional convention directly to address union-friendly laws such as the Wicks Law and the Taylor Law. Upstate politicians have sometimes taken a leading role in the moves that give the state its liberal reputation. It was George Michaels, an assemblyman from the Finger Lakes, who in 1970 asked that his vote of no on the bill to legalize abortion in New York be changed to yes, causing the bill to pass by one vote. Nearly 3 decades later, voters in Plattsburgh elected Daniel L. Stewart, the state's first openly gay mayor, a Republican. Another upstate mayor, Jason West of New Paltz, drew national attention in early 2004 when he officiated at the state's first gay weddings. Upstate Democrats have traditionally leaned further to the right than downstate Democrats, particularly in Buffalo and Niagara Falls. Jack Quinn, a Republican, was elected from a district that was 57% Democratic. Similarly, leading Democrats in the area, including Dennis Gorski, Anthony Masciello and James D. Griffin, were noted for their fiscal and social conservatism and were often cross-endorsed by the Conservative Party of New York. Other examples of moderate to conservative-leaning Democrats include Michael McNulty, John LaFalce, Scott Murphy and Brian Higgins. One example of the ideological divide between upstate and downstate Democrats was the reaction to Governor David Paterson's appointment of Congresswoman Kirsten Gillibrand, who represented the New York's 20th District in the Adirondacks, to the U.S. Senate. Downstate Democrats were skeptical of Gillibrand's positions on gun control and immigration, which, while mainstream in upstate New York, were to the right of positions of downstate Democratic activists such as Congresswoman Carolyn McCarthy. Paterson's appointment of Gillibrand was believed to be an effort to enhance his own chances in a general election by presenting a balanced ticket which would appeal to moderates and upstate voters. The last time that New York has had a senator of either party from upstate was Republican Charles E. Goodell in 1971. He was forced out by a more conservative downstate candidate, James Buckley, on a third-party challenge. Proponents of the 2008 presidential run by Sen. Hillary Clinton have pointed to her relative success upstate. She lost the region by less than 10% of the vote in 2000, as an argument that she could succeed as a candidate in red states. Skeptics of such a bid have responded that upstate is not as conservative as what is now the leadership of the Republican Party. Most of New York State's most successful Republican politicians, however, such as Rockefeller, George Pataki, Thomas Dewey, Fiorello LaGuardia, Jacob Javits and Alphonse D'Amato, came from the downstate region. Most upstate Republicans are politically unacceptable to even downstate Republican voters, and the party's financial backers are mostly based downstate. This was a key factor in forcing Buffalo politician Chris Collins out of a potential run for governor in 2010. Nevertheless, Republican attempts upstate to court votes by openly appealing to suspicion of New York City have usually backfired. In 1998, incumbent and Long Island native Republican Senator Al D'Amato's Senate campaign ran television ads in some upstate markets, attempting to link his opponent, Charles Schumer, to a flock of hungry sharks released from New York City to fleece upstate. Schumer went on to win the election and did well in upstate areas. But while politicians based upstate rarely win elections for governor or U.S. senator, some have been elected to other lesser statewide offices, such as Lieutenant Governor Stan Lundeen, Marianne Krupsak, Mary Donahue, Robert Duffy and Kathy Hochul, for instance, Controller Edward Regan, and Attorney General Dennis Bacco. The sharp differences in ideology have historically fueled many political struggles by upstate conservatives with largely downstate-based Democrats in the New York legislature. However, the feuds quite often tend to be more on regional lines than on party lines. The most recent major examples were the failed attempt by Syracuse area Assemblyman Michael Bragman, the majority leader of that body, to seize control of the downstate-dominated state Democratic Party in 2000, which was immediately followed by a strong retaliatory backlash against all upstate politicians in state government and the attempt by both Republicans and Democrats to cater to upstate voters by promising to disband the New York State Thruway, whose toll portions are entirely upstate. Both candidates in the 2006 gubernatorial election, Democrat Eliot Spitzer and Republican John Faso, pledged to eliminate the tolls. However, at the present time, only an 8-mile stretch of I-190 in downtown Buffalo, which had been collecting tolls to be used to keep I-84 downstate a free highway, has been made toll-free. In fact, the Thruway Authority has steadily increased tolls annually since 2006. Critics upstate feel that it is unlikely that either party would genuinely be willing to give up such a significant source of revenue, despite promises to the contrary, particularly one that does not draw its funding from the population core downstate. Republicans have traditionally controlled the state Senate by virtue of holding most seats upstate, even when the state as a whole swung Democratic. However, the leadership has often been split between upstate senators such as Joseph Bruno and Long Islanders such as the former Majority Leader, Dean Skelos. The 2008 state Senate elections shifted political power in the chamber from the upstate heavy Republicans to the New York City-centered Democrats. However, as evidence of continued GOP strength in the upstate, the Democrats won all but 3 seats in New York City but only 5 north of Westchester County. Skelos, a Long Island native, hatched a plan to lure 4 conservative New York City Democrats, known collectively as the Gang of Four, to vote for Skelos as leader of the Senate in exchange for committee assignments. But the move backfired. The Democrats in question got the committee assignments ahead of the upstate senators who were expected to get them, but instead turned and announced their support for Senate Democratic leader Malcolm Smith, as part of a deal ironically hatched by upstate politicians Stephen Pidgeon and Tom Golisano. As a result, several state Senate Republicans have considered reaching out to the 5 upstate Democrats, compared to 27 downstate Democrats in the chamber, to form a coalition, including Buffalo Democrat William Stachowski, who would have earned a powerful committee leadership position had it not been for the Gang of Four deal. Stachowski and the others have so far rebuffed any suggestions they would break ranks in an effort to retain the upstate Democrats. Smith nominated Syracuse Senator David Valesky as his second-in-command. Upstate Democrats such as Valesky, Stachowski and Darrell Aubertine often face significant pressure from constituents and other upstate lawmakers to hold more conservative positions than their downstate counterparts. In the congressional elections of 2006 and 2008, many upstate congressional seats historically held by Republicans came under serious challenge by Democratic contenders, and some, such as the 20th, 24th and 29th districts, were lost to Democrats. Even with Republican voter enrollment advantages remaining in place, these seats went back to the Republicans in 2010. Slow population growth in the 1990s led legislators to eliminate 2 upstate House districts in the 2002 reappointment and leave all downstate districts alone. Hence, the influence of upstate in Congress has faded from the days in which Jack Kemp, Barbara Conable, and Sam Stratton were prominent House leaders. 2 more districts, at least one of which is certain to be upstate, will be eliminated in the 2012 reappointment. Despite this, current upstate House members such as Kathy Hochul, Tom Reed, and Anne-Marie Buerkle have earned significant notoriety, both positive and negative, for their accomplishments on Capitol Hill. A growing movement exists among New York City residents to buy summer homes in upstate tourist communities and vote in elections there, where their vote would have more of an influence, a move that has drawn significant enmity from local residents. Upstate New York showed an unusual amount of electoral strength when Buffalo's Carl Paladino and Panama's Greg Edwards defeated downstate candidates Rick Lazio and Thomas Ognibene for the Republican nomination in the New York gubernatorial election 2010, thanks largely to overwhelming support upstate and in western New York, as high as 93% for Paladino in his home county of Erie County. Each gubernatorial candidate had picked a candidate from the other side of the state as their running mate. Lazio with Edwards, Palladino with Ognibene. But voters were free to combine their own ticket à la carte in the primary elections, resulting in native favorites winning both races. Palladino, in particular, completed a near sweep of upstate counties while the downstate counties voted heavily for Lazio. Palladino and Edwards went on to lose the general election to downstate Democrat Andrew Cuomo and his running mate, Rochester's Bob Duffy. Palladino and Edwards won the 8 counties of the Buffalo media market, including the home counties, the rural counties in the southern tier, and 2 other rural counties upstate. Cuomo won the rest of the region in addition to a complete sweep of downstate New York. Upstate also showed strength in the 2012 senatorial Republican primary, in which Manhattan attorney Wendy E. Long campaigned heavily upstate and rode it to victory over her Republican primary opponent, favoriting Brooklyn Congressman Bob Turner. None of the candidates in the primary were from the upstate region. Long was even less successful than Palladino was, winning only 2 counties en route to a 45 percentage point loss to Kirsten Gillibrand. In 2014, downstate Republican Rob Astrino, running with Chemung County Sheriff Christopher Moss, lost the gubernatorial election but performed better than usual in upstate, winning several counties, including St. Lawrence and Monroe counties, that traditionally vote Democrat. Presidential voting patterns. See also, List of political figures of upstate New York. Politics of New York State. New York State Legislature. Secession in New York.